The Empire had ruled the galaxy for over 12,000 years. Their territory stretched across 900 star systems. Their military fleet numbered in the millions. Every species in the known universe had bent the knee to their authority. They believed themselves to be the ultimate power in existence. They had conquered, enslaved, and destroyed any civilization that dared to challenge them. Peace existed only because no one was foolish enough to fight back anymore. Emperor the Eternal sat upon his throne made of crystallized starlight. His four eyes scanned the holographic displays that showed the peaceful borders of his empire. Everything was under control. Everything was as it should be. The lesser species paid their tribute. The slave worlds produced their resources. The military maintained order through fear. Life was perfect for the rulers of the galaxy. Then the message arrived from the Outer Rim. Admiral of the Third Fleet stood on the bridge of her flagship. Her scales had turned pale with shock. Before her vessel floated something that should not exist. A ship unlike anything in the galactic database appeared from nowhere. It had no identification signals. It matched no known design patterns. The vessel was roughly 3 kilometers long with a strange angular construction. Its hull was covered in some kind of dark material that absorbed sensor readings. The mysterious ship had simply appeared at the edge of the system. It had not used any hyperspace corridor. It had not activated any known form of faster-than-light travel. One moment the space was empty. The next moment the ship was there. This should have been impossible. Admiral opened communication channels. She demanded identification. She threatened destruction. She promised mercy if the vessel surrendered peacefully. The response came in a language that no translator could decode. The sounds were harsh and complicated. They contained emotional undertones that made the Admiral uncomfortable. After several minutes of analysis, the ship's computer finally produced a rough translation. The message was simple. The mysterious vessel claimed this region of space for something called the Human Collective. They demanded that all forces withdraw immediately. They stated that failure to comply would result in consequences. Admiral laughed at the message. She commanded 800 warships. The strange vessel was alone. She gave the order to surround and capture the intruder. Her ships moved into attack formation, their weapons charged with deadly energy. Victory seemed certain. The mysterious vessel released a single pulse of light. Every ship in range immediately lost power. Engines failed. Weapons went offline. Life support systems began to shut down. 800 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy became floating metal coffins in an instant. Admiral watched in horror as her entire fleet became helpless. The mysterious vessel moved slowly through the disabled fleet. It scanned each ship carefully. Then it broadcast another message. The translation was clearer this time. The voice belonged to someone who called himself captain of the HSS Prometheus. He explained that his people had been watching the Empire for a long time. They had seen the slavery. They had witnessed the genocide. They had documented the cruelty. Humanity had decided that the time for observation was over. Captain gave Admiral a choice. She could surrender her fleet and release all slaves aboard her vessels, or she could watch her crew suffocate as their life support systems failed permanently. The Admiral had never faced such a decision. She had never encountered an enemy that could disable an entire fleet with a single weapon. She had no choice but to surrender. News of the defeat reached Emperor within hours. He refused to believe the reports at first. One ship had defeated 800. This was impossible. This was lies. This was propaganda from enemies within his own court. He ordered the messengers executed for spreading false information. Then more reports arrived. The mysterious vessel had not stopped at disabling the Third Fleet. The ship called Prometheus had traveled to 5 different star systems in a single day. At each location, it had freed slaves from mining operations. It had destroyed military installations without any apparent effort. It had broadcast messages encouraging subjugated species to rise up against their masters. The ship seemed to be everywhere at once. It struck without warning, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Emperor assembled his war council. The greatest military minds in the empire gathered to discuss this unprecedented threat. They analyzed every piece of available data. They studied the recordings of the mysterious ship's attacks. They searched their databases for any information about these creatures called humans. They found nothing. The humans did not exist in any galactic records. They had never been contacted by explorers. They had never appeared in any ancient texts or historical documents. One scientist proposed a theory. Perhaps the humans came from beyond the known galaxy. Perhaps they had developed in isolation somewhere in the vast emptiness between star clusters. Perhaps they had evolved differently and created technology that followed principles unknown to science. The War Council dismissed this idea as fantasy. Nothing existed beyond the known galaxy. Everyone knew this to be true. The attacks continued over the following weeks. More human vessels appeared throughout the empire. Each ship demonstrated the same terrifying capabilities. They could disable entire fleets with a single pulse. They could travel faster than any known method of propulsion. They could appear and disappear at will. They could not be tracked or predicted. The military had no defense against these abilities. Slave rebellions began erupting across the empire. Species that had been conquered ago suddenly found courage to fight back. They had heard the human broadcasts. They had seen the recordings of fleets being disabled. They believed that salvation had finally arrived. The carefully maintained order of the empire began to crumble. Emperor made a desperate decision. He ordered the construction of a weapon that had been forbidden for thousands of years. The stellar annihilator could destroy an entire star system. It had been created during the ancient wars but never used because its power was too dangerous. Believed that only complete destruction could stop the human threat. He would find their home system and erase it from existence. The construction took 3 months. During this time, the empire lost control of nearly 200 star systems. Former slave species established their own governments. They formed alliances with each other. They began building their own fleets using captured technology. The humans provided them with advisors and supplies. The rebellion grew stronger every day. The stellar annihilator was completed and mounted on the largest ship ever built by the Emperor. Personally commanded this vessel. He had captured a human prisoner during a rare successful engagement. The prisoner had been interrogated using every method available. Eventually, the prisoner revealed the location of Earth. The human existed in a small star system at the edge of the galaxy. It was hidden behind a nebula that blocked all sensor readings. The Emperor's fleet traveled to the coordinates. They emerged from hyperspace ready to destroy everything. What they found shocked them beyond words. Earth was not a primitive world hiding from the galaxy. Earth was surrounded by thousands of warships that dwarfed even the largest vessels. The planet itself was covered in city lights that extended across every continent. Massive space stations orbited the world like protective guardians. Captain appeared on the Emperor's. He was smiling. He explained that humanity had been spacefaring for over 50,000 years. They had discovered faster than light travel before the Empire even existed. They had explored the entire galaxy and found it filled with cruel empires and suffering species. They had decided to remain hidden and observe. They had hoped that the galaxy would eventually develop peace on its own. It never did. They proved to be the worst of all the conquering species. Their cruelty had no limits. Their ambition had no end. Humanity had watched and recorded everything. They had built their forces in secret. They had developed technologies that seemed like magic to other species. They had waited for the right moment to act. That moment had finally come. Captain gave Emperor the same choice he had given Admiral: surrender and face justice for crimes against the galaxy, or resist and watch the Empire be dismantled by force. The Emperor chose resistance. He activated the stellar annihilator and targeted the Earth. The weapon fired a beam of pure destruction toward the human. A shield appeared around Earth that absorbed the entire blast without any visible effect. The humans had been prepared for this attack. They had known about the forbidden weapon. They had studied its design from intercepted communications. They had built defenses specifically to counter it. The human fleet moved forward. They did not fire weapons of death. They fired the same disabling pulses that had defeated the Third Fleet. The Emperor's armada became powerless within minutes. Millions of soldiers found themselves trapped in ships that could not move or fight. The greatest military force in galactic history had been defeated without a single casualty on either side. Emperor was captured and placed on trial before a council of species that his empire had wronged. Representatives from hundreds of civilizations about atrocities. The trial lasted for months. The evidence was overwhelming. The emperor was found guilty and sentenced to spend the rest of his life working in the same mines where his slaves had suffered. Humanity did not claim the empire for themselves. They helped the freed species establish independent governments. They shared technology with those who had been kept primitive by their oppressors. They created a new galactic council where every species had equal representation. They became guardians rather than rulers. Captain was asked why humanity had waited so long to intervene. He explained that his people had learned difficult lessons from their own history. They had once been as violent and cruel as the. They had overcome those tendencies through thousands of years of painful growth. They had hoped the galaxy would follow the same path naturally. When it became clear that intervention was necessary, they had acted decisively. The galaxy entered a new era. Former slaves became free citizens. Ancient hatreds began to heal. Trade and cooperation replaced conquest and exploitation. Humanity stood watch over this transformation. They remained powerful enough to stop any new tyrants from rising. They remained wise enough to let other species find their own paths. The mysterious vessel called Prometheus became a symbol of hope throughout the galaxy. Children of every species learned about the day when a single human ship had challenged an empire. They learned that courage and technology combined could change the universe. They learned that tyranny would always fall eventually. The empire had ruled through fear for 12,000 years. Humanity had ended their reign in less than one. The galaxy would never forget this lesson. Power without justice was always temporary. Those who abused the weak would eventually face those who protected them. The humans had proven this truth to the entire universe. And somewhere in the void between galaxies, other ancient civilizations watched these events unfold. They began to wonder if perhaps they should introduce themselves to these remarkable humans. The story of the galaxy was just beginning.